Okay, hi. So somebody asked about grading, and they said they have a lot of students and they have a lot of stuff to grade. And so I thought, well, I'll just share how I grade because I try not to grade very much. And I try not to ever have to sit down and look at too many stacks of papers. That's a drag. So what I do is I use, for 65% of my grade, I use this interpersonal communication rubric. I base it on the ACTFL standards, and it has basically two domains. One is support the flow of language, and the other one is to listen with the intent to understand. But I don't sit down and just circle every week 180 different papers for each little domain for each kid. That's too much work. So what I do is at the beginning of the year, I send it home to the parents or the families. Not everybody lives with their parents. And I tell them that it's going to be 65% of their kids' grade, and I tell them that if their grade gets below an 80%, then I will call home. And so then I just sit down at the end of the week, and I don't, like I said, they have a copy of the rubric at their house. And so they sign this thing that says this is based on the standards. It's worth 65% of my kid's grade, and I understand that you'll call home if it gets to be a C or below. And so then on Fridays, I sit down and I give the kids some busy work. At the beginning of the year, it's truly just busy work, illustrate the story or write me a letter in English about how class is going. And then later in the year, we're always doing reading at the beginning of every period, so I just have them read. So I sit them down and get them to do some busy work, and I call home for the kids that need a call home. So they're doing their busy work, and I tell them, don't worry kids, you guys do your busy work. I'm just going to be sitting here entering your grades on your interpersonal communication rubric. Don't mind me. I don't tell them it's busy work, but anyway, whatever. I'm don't mind me. Do your work, and I'll be entering these grades. So let's just work for about 5 or 10 minutes. So they're working, and I'm entering grades. So basically I put down a 97, a 98, 99, or 100. I fill down everybody's grade. I kind of vary it because I don't want to be putting the exact same grade in every single week, because that's kind of strange. Then everybody's average is then the bulk of the averages are going to be 100 or 99. So I just kind of vary it, a high A. And then I just fill that down so that everybody has that. And then I look through my grade, my class list, and I think, okay, do I need to send these kids a message? If I need to send the kid, just the kid, a message and not call home, I give them a B of some type, a high B, a low B, kind of depending on how they're doing. I know what's on that rubric, but I don't sit there and circle it. I then think about who needs I look at my class list and I think, okay, are they doing fine? They're going to keep an A, or do they kind of need a message? I'm going to give them a B, or do I need to call home? So that'll be a C or a D. So then as the kids are working, doing their busy work or they're reading, I literally pick up the phone, and Synergy's right there. It's got all the contact information. So I pick up the phone and I use Synergy to call home. So I'll say the kids are working. This is what they hear. Hi, this is Ms. Hargaden. I'm your student's French teacher or Spanish teacher here at it's my old school, Gordon Russell, here at West Sylvan Middle School. And I was just calling. I can't talk very long because I have kids here in front of me. But I thought I was just entering some grades, and I thought you would like to know right away that your student has a C in their interpersonal communication skills. And so because you signed that note at the beginning of the year, that's a big part of their grade, and I just thought you would want a heads up to review that with your student, make sure they understand their expectations, and they'll have another chance next week to get that grade back up. So it's not a really big deal. I just thought you want to nip this in the bud, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Phone calls aren't really the easiest way to reach a teacher, but I will be happy to respond by email if you have any questions. I know we're going to be able to get this problem worked out before it becomes a big issue for their grade. I wish I could talk longer, but I got kids in front of me, so oh, you're so welcome. Oh, it's my job. Oh, yes, of course. Just email me if you have any questions. Thank you. So the kids are all sitting there working, so they've heard me call home, and they know, oh my goodness, I hope that wasn't me. And so they're all gonna like go into their, check their grades. And you notice I didn't say the kid's name, trying to be confidential, but it did send a message to the whole class that like I'm serious. So that is the biggest part of my grade. Like I do that 65% of the grade. You might not want to do 65%, but basically I'm entering a huge amount of their points based on what we're doing in class and their ability to maintain the flow of the language and be engaged with the communication that's happening, whether it be a story or discussion or whatever. So that is a pretty easy way to grade because it literally gets done like Fridays while they're doing this busy work, and I call home, and so then over the course of the term the grades tend to start going up because the kids start realizing like, oh, she's gonna call home, so they they start to learn what they're supposed to do. Then the other 35% of my grades, I do them in various formats, but again, I don't want to be sitting down and grading a whole bunch of stacks of papers, so I try to minimize that. So most of the remaining 35% is quick quizzes. So that would be like at the end of the period, I would either ask them 5-10 questions about what we had done that day. So I will either do it like out loud, like where it's not for a grade. So I'll just be like, okay, class, I'm going to say this twice. And the first time I just want you to listen. And the second time I want you to say the answer. So, does Bill like basketball or football? Shh, don't talk. Does Bill like basketball or football? And they'll be like, football. I'm like, yeah, nice job. Number 2, does Mary like the beach or the mountains? Shh, don't talk. Okay, does Mary like the beach or the mountains? They're like the mountains. I'm like, yay. So that's just like kind of if you want to do a wrap-up activity but not put a grade in the grade book. But if you do want to put a grade in the grade book, you basically do the same thing but have them write on a little piece of paper. I take a piece of paper and fold it into a little, not fold it, but cut it, and have kids do this. Actually, I don't do the cutting. But anyway, I have kids cut it into little bits of paper like that, so I'm not wasting paper. And then I have them grade it in class. So I have them switch with a partner. Some school districts don't let you do that. You would have to have them grade their own. No big deal. I mean, really, people, if they cheat, it means that they understood that they got it wrong because you're grading it in the language, and so they're getting more input. So who really cares if they change their answer? I mean, they're still learning, right? Of course, I don't encourage them to cheat, but if they do, I'm not going to knock myself out about it. I'm not going to grade all of their papers on the off chance that like a couple kids are going to cheat. Like, I don't have time for that. So then we grade them in class, either ourselves or we switch with a partner. And then on the way out, I just take my attendance sheet and I take a clip or a stapler and I collect their papers on the way out. They already know what they've made, okay? And then I take I got this idea from my friend Shauna. Thank you, Shauna, you're the best. Can't wait to have coffee with you next week. But, so I collect their papers on the way out, and then Shauna's amazing idea, like to really cut down on grading, is to basically throw away all the ones that have a perfect score. So I throw away all the perfect ones, and then I take the ones that aren't perfect and I clip them to my attendance sheet. So I've got my attendance sheet with the not perfect ones clipped, and so then all I have to do is go fill in 100% all the way down in my grade book, and then take out the kids that were absent and put whatever code I use, like excused or absent or whatever, and then take the kids that aren't perfect. So like, say there was 10 questions, these are kids that made a 9 or an 8 or something like that. So just put their grades in. So basically I'm only entering the absent kids and the kids who weren't perfect, and these quizzes are so easy that like I'm only entering like 4 or 5 grades per class period. So that is pretty much the bulk of my grading. Now, you can't always like say the same thing. You can't use the same grade like over and over. Like your admin might be kind of like, why does it say quick quiz every single time you enter a grade? So you might want to change the name of the quick quiz. You might call it quick quiz, and then sometimes call it a formative listening assessment, or sometimes call it an exit ticket, or sometimes call it, comprehension check of the story of the taco or whatever. So you can kind of change up the grade in your grade book, but your class activity, remains the same. Okay, so for me, that's most of my grades. But you might want to do some other grades. Who knows? Oh, wait. That's the bulk of my grades in the first trimester. In the later terms, we start SSR and we start free writing. So we do SSR every day for about 10 minutes approximately at the beginning of every single class period. And I made a rubric called The Habits of Strong Readers. And so I tell them very explicitly, like, I'm not going to read with you. I know some people say that's best for us to do, but I'm willing to not read, even though I love reading in French and I love reading in Spanish. I'm not going to do it because I'm here to support you. So I'm going to sit here and look at your habits and help you to build stronger habits. And one way I'm going to do that is by communicating with you how you're doing by giving you a grade. So I'll sit there and like literally grade them on their habits. Now that rubric has, I think, about 3 or 4 different domains. For instance, one is the student picks several different text types, each time, and they persist in looking for a text type that they like so that they can find a book that they want to read and they're not going to be bored with. So it's putting the responsibility for finding a text type that they enjoy reading on the student, and also acknowledging that, not every kid is going to enjoy every type of text. Some kids like a harder, challenging book. Some kids like really easy stuff. So, I don't care what they read as long as it's something they enjoy. So that grade, I just literally enter 100 for everybody at the beginning of the week, and then every day for the first month, especially the first not month of school, the first month of SSR, which is kind of like mid-October or late to mid-November. I'm literally sitting there with my computer open in front of me, like typing in the grades as they're reading, and so they'll see me like looking at them and be like somebody's not reading, so it's like type. So I kind of like try to make eye contact with the kid, like, I saw you not reading and I just changed your grade, like it's going down. So that gives me a grade on their reading. That doesn't like require them to fill out a reading log or do any kind of activities with their reading. Steve Krashen says, and this is my experience too, this is what I learned at Teachers College Reading and Writing Project for English Language Arts, that, follow-up activities like reading journals, reading logs, comprehension questions, they tend to take the joy out of reading for kids. So I don't want to do that with my assessment or my grades for it. And plus I don't want to grade all those reading logs and stuff. So I just grade their behavior, their engagement with the text, and I watch them. I got this idea from Teachers College, who is a very well-respected think tank and research institution at Columbia University in New York. And so I figure if they are helping kids to become stronger readers and have stronger reading habits, then so can I. I also have one called The Habits of Strong Writers, which means that I don't have to like grade their writing. I'm grading like how they write, how they act while they're writing. So do they brainstorm with a partner? Do they, keep themselves writing? Do they set a goal and work towards it? Stuff like that. I didn't want to be grading them on like the content of their writing because everybody is going to develop at a different pace, and I don't want them to feel like they're like failing at writing, especially in the first year. I mostly teach first year. So the Habits of Strong Writers is similar to the Habits of Strong Readers. So I'm just literally sitting there watching them write and grading them on their behaviors. Of course, during reading and writing, if a kid is like sitting over there, across the room and like really struggling, like I will get up, and either go and like encourage a reluctant writer or help a reader who's like maybe got the wrong kind of text in front of them, or maybe needs a little boost or some encouragement or a conversation with me. So it's not like I'm just sitting there grading them. I am watching them and interacting with them too. One thing that I do for the struggling writers is I will go and like, let's say they're just sitting there staring, like they've brainstormed their first line, but like they're just like sitting there kind of staring at it. I'll go and like maybe give them the next word that they could write, or the next 2 or 3 words that they could write. And then I'll put a sticker, like I carry around little teeny tiny like smiley faces and stars and stuff. I'll put a little sticker at the end of the first line and be like, do you think you can write down to that? And so setting them like a really tiny goal usually helps get them unstuck. Basically, I have one more thing to say about writing, because the person who asked the question like specifically said about writing, like how do I teach writing? I've got so many students. Research says that explicit error correction doesn't really do a lot for writers to develop, and so taking home a huge stack of papers and like forcing yourself to like circle all their errors or like give them explicit feedback even on the structure